morning, Bajaj Consumer reported 7.5% growth on their top line, but higher other expenses weighed on the margin system around, which declined to 28.5% from 30.4% from the year-ago period. Well, to know more, the likely impact of consumption slowdown on earnings and more, let's welcome the Managing Director of the company, Mr. Sumit Malhotra. Hi, Mr. Malhotra. Good afternoon to you, and thanks a lot for joining us on Bloomberg Quint. Top-line growth seen, but despite of higher gross margins this time around, we've seen the operating margins coming lower due to higher other expenses. If you could first give us a sense why the other expenses went up during the quarter, and do we also see this trend continuing in the coming quarters?
See, the higher other expenses is largely on account of advertising and sales promotions, which have gone up by more than 200 basis points. And if you see the drop in operating income, it's a little nearly the same as the increase in other advertising expenditure. Advertising expenditure has really gone up because of the launch of a couple of products that we have invested in during the Q1. As we go along, I think the EBITDA or the operating profits will go back to around 32% from the current 30% that we are at.
You're suggesting the margins will go up to 30 to 32% in the coming quarters?
Operating profits.
Operating profit, all right.
Margins have anyway gone up. If you look at the operating profits. Yeah.
Okay, definitely, sir. The gross margins are up 130 bips is what we witnessed. But talk to us more on the consumption slowdown that we've been witnessing. And I think the commentary also states that sequentially there has been a slowdown in the rural market and also in the wholesale channel. What are the current trends suggesting?
See, if you look at the first quarter vis-a-vis the fourth quarter of last year, you'll see that the growths of the total hair oil have dropped from around 8.9% to 4.4%, and that's quite a steep fall. It's halved at this point of time. The biggest drop has happened in the rural areas, which is where the growths in total hair oil is at approximately 4.8%, as against something like 11%, which was there during last year's same quarter. So, if you look at it, the buoyancy or the hope that was there in the fourth quarter of last year that the rural demand would continue to rise has really not translated. And despite rise in MSPs, rise in the subsidies the government is, we still haven't seen any kind of positive growths coming out of rural consumption. And that, I think, for the total FMCG category and also us, is a source of discomfort.
So then, how are you looking to increase your penetration and also your revenues from the rural market? Is the company offering more discount? Though you've posted volume growth of 7.7% for Bajaj Almond Drops, but in value terms, what was the growth?
See, if you look at it, the volume growth of Bajaj Almond Drops is 5.2 and the value is approximately 8.5. Now, these figures differ from yours because you're probably looking at our investor presentation, which shows the total growths including international and canteen stores, whereas the figures I'm talking about is domestic almond drops. But figures apart, there are two ways you can react to the current situation. One is reduce your expenditure and try and maintain your operating profit. The other thing is invest during this time and build your brand for times when the growth start coming back. We are doing the latter, and we are investing, like you have already seen, in advertising and sales promotion, largely focused on rural. We are also investing big time on increasing our distribution in the rural areas with the premise that the growths would come down in an economy like ours, which is very heavily dependent on rural consumption and the population being largely rural. You have to keep investing, otherwise once the growth comes up, you'll be doing only catch up there.
Mr. Malhotra, this is Alex here. I just have a question with regard to the statement that you made with regard to the rural segment and how it's playing out. Just want a sense, and this more or less fits with everything that we're hearing from the FMCG industry. Will you have to really curtail your expectations for the rest of the financial year then? And will you have to lower your expectations for revenue growth? You've already said that you're focusing on investments and building really for the future with the demand scenario as it is.
I wouldn't be so negative about it. I would be more cautious, and I think the position will be clear in another quarter, that what is the trend in terms of consumption, because you should realize that if rural is the drag, the time that you'll see the positive or negative impact improving or going down would be during the harvest season, which would be somewhere near October, November, and therefore that would be the time that you really start either reducing your expectations or expecting an improvement in the consumption scenario.
Okay. Also, Mr. Malhotra, are the ad expenses going to be higher for the remainder of the year, or this was just a one-off because of new launches?
There are two parts. One, the new launches, I don't think you'll see very heavy expenditure during the remaining 3 quarters. On Almond Drops, it will remain high because, like I said, that I strongly believe the time when growths are not coming, that's the time you've got to invest. You've got to find the money to sort of put behind brand, because once the market turns, you should be top of mind in the consumer's thought process.
Okay, lastly, just leave us with a guidance then. Can we expect margins going back to 30% for the entire year? What sort of top line growth are you targeting for FY20, and also the domestic volume growth for your hair oil segment?
Normally we don't give guidance, and that's one of the reasons why you see our investor presentation having a lot of data. We believe that with the data you have, you can do your own model. But having said that, I don't see gross margins dropping any further. If at all, you'll see it going up in the coming quarter or so, largely because all the raw and packaging materials basically are benign. The only joker in the pack, which is the light liquid paraffin, which could go up, we have stocked up till October, so you won't see any negative impact. In terms of advertising, I believe it will be high, but it won't be that big a drag on your bottom line in the coming quarters. In terms of growth, it all depends on how the total hair oil volume and value growths go up in the remaining quarters, because the current growths are not great. It's around 5.3%, which is something which has been the lowest in the last 8 quarters. So if that doesn't change, then there will be a strain on growth of all brands, and more so our brand, which is the single largest hair oil being sold in the country today.
Okay, Mr. Malhotra, we leave it at that note. Appreciate you joining us today and taking us through the quarterly performance, and all the best to you for the remainder of the year.